think she just thinks quicker than a lot of people do. And being a defender, I hate playing against her because I can tell she's always 1 or 2 steps in front of me.
She's probably one of the most agile keepers I've ever seen. She's got extremely long legs, extremely long arms, and she's very focused.
She's young, athletic, energised, like she's quick. She's actually a good player, you know, coming up in the ranks.
She's just amazing. She can do unbelievable things. She can just pull out saves from where you don't expect. She's just sort of got that X factor.
Her long legs. She has the longest legs in the world. Like, you think you're away from her and this just long leg comes around and tackles you.
She just knows a lot. You go to Lids with a question and for some reason she'll just know about it. I think she's just switched on and just a curious kind of girl.
There's no reason why she can't be the best player that this country has ever seen.
And she's got the ability to pull out saves that I very rarely see other female goalkeepers make.
It's fantastic to have 2 Indigenous girls in our team.
I think, you know, if you look, any Indigenous athletes want any role models, certainly Lydia and Kaya are up there as 2 of the best.
There is nothing the Aboriginal people love more than a good yarn, and to illustrate their stories they draw in the sand. This is called Milbindi. This is the story of 2 very different Aboriginal women from opposite sides of Australia, following in the footsteps of the first 2 Indigenous players to represent Australia at the World Cup finals, Harry Williams and Bridget Starr. Ever since the first Europeans invaded their land, the Aboriginal people have had to endure many indignities. None more so than the 1905 Aborigine Protection Act, where they had to request permission to do the simplest of things, such as visit relatives and get married. They even had to apply for citizenship in their own land. The Chief Protector had the power to remove children from their mothers, irrespective of their parents' wishes, believing that this would give these children a better chance of success in life. The resultant hurt was only eased when in 2008 the then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd apologised to the Aboriginal people, and in particular the stolen generation.
I don't know if I've told her this story, but yes, well, we were older, you know, we were in our 40s, and we both wanted a child. After we got married, we lived in an Aboriginal community, which is the only one in the Great Southern, southwest of Perth. I went into the hospital in Katanning to have her. Now, all the time, of course, we're thinking of names, as you do, you know. And the only name that I knew for sure was Lydia Grace. That was it. Because Grace was Ron's grandmother's name. And Lydia is a very strong woman in the Bible. And that's what I wanted to name her. And and I couldn't come to a boy's name. And he kept saying he. And I said, Ron, what if we have a girl? Oh no, you're not going to have a girl. And so anyway, go in the hospital, I'm in labor, and then they missed a heartbeat. And so 3 doctors zoom like that, and I'm down into the operating theater, and she's born by cesarean. And they cleaned her up and wrapped her up and said, oh, you know, Reverend Williams, you have a beautiful daughter. And he told me later, he said, it went through his mind, a daughter? And then he's looking at this daughter, and she's frowning at him. And like this, and all of a sudden the sun comes in. This is his story. Sun comes in the window, and all of a sudden he realizes that she's a beautiful, this is his daughter, and he just breathes like this, and all of a sudden she just smiles at him. I mean, all her growing up, she'd sit on his shoulders, he'd tell her stories of, you know, Aboriginal legends and the stars and everything. Ron was never initiated as a tribal man, but he was considered by the Western Desert tribes as like a man who had risen above that. You know, he was a man for everybody. They called him Gurda Gurda, everyone's brother. He was the only one that had that name. And so he was like, in a sense, like an elder, a spiritual elder. Everyone knew he was a storyteller. And he wanted her to have as much Aboriginal understanding of the bush and of the stories of his people as possible. And I thought that was good. I mean, I had given my life to being part of the Aboriginal world. I mean, even though I'd never be one, but that was pretty close, you know, to be married and part of the community and live in that community and everything. So it was very important for him to do that.
At just 10 months old, Lydia moved to the gold mining town of Kalgoorlie.
With Uncle Ron and Auntie Diana, they were always very busy. Like, they were never in one spot. They travelled Australia, they went out and they did a lot of missionary work out in the Central Desert. There was a photo, Uncle Ron came back and Lydia, one little white little baby, was sitting right in front of all these full-blood Aboriginal people, and it was just so gorgeous, you know, like she really like stood out and they loved her, you know, all the Aboriginal people just loved Lydia, you know. Uncle Ron and Auntie Diana and Lydia was really famous, yeah.
Growing up, probably, I think I was homeschooled for about 6 months and then on the road, but yeah, just been all around the place, I guess.
I mean, what was that like being sort of educated on the road? Was it in the back of a four-wheel drive or by the side of the road?
A bit of both, I think. Pretty much the teachers, they loved me that much. But I had to do a travel diary, so I think that was a little bit of work there. And then Mum's obviously a qualified teacher, so she helped out quite a bit. All I wanted to do was play games with them and, you know, go out in the bush and ride motorbikes and stuff. So, yeah, it's a bit different. Looking back now, obviously, living away from being in the desert, it's definitely, you know, I've realised how special my bringing up has been. And, you know, even though I look back, I don't think I would go back at the moment, so.
Your dad, obviously, the Aboriginal cultural side was very important to him. Did you, again, take on a lot of what he was telling you as you were growing up?
No, not really. Like, obviously, when you're growing up, you only remember a couple things. So I think now, looking back, I have remembered a lot of the things, but obviously, you know, my mum reminds me a lot of the time as well because I was so young when, you know, back living in the desert.
Well, like in Kalgoorlie, she fit in with the Aboriginal kids. I mean, she did the Aboriginal dancing, she painted up, she knew all the, you know, the stories of the kangaroo and how to be a kangaroo and the dancing and everything. And so she really took to that.
When I was about 10 years old, danced in front of Parliament House before we actually moved to Canberra, and then a year later we were living in there. So, yeah, I think I do know a couple of dances.
Ron really wanted her to be Aboriginal and to really, you know, fight for Aboriginal sort of, not rights, but the beauty and the good things of Aboriginal life.
I reckon Uncle Ron would be really proud of her, yeah. He'd be so happy for her, you know, that she's just come such a long way.
The first 11 years of her life were pretty much soaked in Aboriginality, you know, out in the bush, tribal people. Some of her first words were Aboriginal words.
Being in the bush, everyone pretty much spoke, I guess, a bit of slang and not really full Aboriginal dialect, but I only know a couple words.
Well, I think she has slotted in very well in that. I mean, we tried at the beginning always to give her the most Aboriginal background that we could. However, when it came to her education, we wanted her to have a good education, so we put her into, you know, a Catholic school, but it was she was the only Aboriginal child there. But then as she grew up, and particularly, and it's interesting, as she came to Canberra, then she became known more in the Aboriginal world, even more than in Kalgoorlie, I think because of soccer.
On the other side of the country, in a suburb of Sydney, Kaya Simon's parents were doing everything they could to give her the best start in life.
When she was so hypo when she was young, you know, she'd, if I was out doing the lawn mowing, she'd come out and she'd want to do the lawn mowing, and You know what I mean? She was a daddy's girl when she was little, and you know, that's what I loved about her. She used to come out and she used to get into things, you know what I mean, and help out when the others would be sitting down watching television. Kyra would come out and help me around the house, you know, doing the lawn and stuff. She was the fastest runner. He gave her the best and fairest for the, you know, she's only 5, and he gave her the trophy for the best and fairest because she did so much, you know, tackling, and she was a standout in the team.
She was very determined, very adamant at what she believed, what she wanted to do. So discipline was really hard with Kaya. We struggled with that for a while. And she was very protective of her sister. Her and her sister were quite close growing up. They were like twins. But yeah, she was a very determined little girl.
Kaya was, we're 18 months apart. And when we were at school, like if the little kids would pick on me or something, I'd run to Kaya crying. And then she's like, yeah, which one? And she'd go and she'd bash them up if they were boys, girls, anyone, or even tell the teachers off.
I've always taught the kids, the 4 of them, to be proud of who we are and where we've come from. Both myself and a father are both from an Aboriginal background, and both of us struggled as children. So we both decided we wanted the best for the children, but never forget where you came from. They just assume that we all come from the country. We didn't grow up in the city. I mean, I came to this inner city in my early childhood. I mean, we came to Erskineville from up the bush at a very early age, but everyone sort of assumes, yeah, that you come from the bush, but yeah, we grew up in the city.
I didn't want the kids to be exposed to all the negative side of Indigenous culture, you know, all the antisocial behaviour, domestic violence, you know, and alcohol abuse, because I grew up with all that. I lacked the support of my parents when I was growing up. We had we had a hard life, and I think, you know, being Indigenous, we had the social problems that Indigenous face. My family was no different, but and I get emotional about this, you know. I put them in a private school, private Christian school, and I worked my butt out to pay the fees so they could go through school. And because I know that I didn't want them to go through what I went through.
I think that support was one of the things, especially being Indigenous, was one of the things that they didn't want to, you know, make sure that was always there. No matter what they wanted to do, we were all put into some sort of sport, didn't matter what it was. You just basically had to do a sport and they would support us. So, I mean, that's the one Kaya chose, like I said, when she crossed over from rugby league to soccer. But yeah, no, they were, you know, that was never in doubt, like always, you know, run to the games, taking her all the games and buying her all the gear, making sure she had, you know, registration, you know, paid and everything like that. No, you couldn't fault them in that regard.
Do you feel almost an obligation to succeed for all the hard work they put in for you to, you know, have those opportunities?
Yeah, I think I do. You know, it's not anything that they've put on me to say you need to succeed now for all our hard work. It's kind of something that I've taken off my own bat and, you know, wanted to really achieve and succeed in what I do, just to say, you know, it was all worthwhile, like all your hard work and the late nights, the, you know, long trips, all the driving you've done for my football and, you know, for putting me through private schools and all the rest of it. It's paying off now, and I hope by representing the country and, you know, doing well at the World Cup and stuff, it's almost like giving something back to them. I think I was just, you know, another little student at school, just running around, just playing any sport I could, just being a little nuisance, I guess you could say, to my teachers and my mum and dad and siblings and everything. I was just another annoying little kid, I reckon.
Probably a bit of a tomboy actually when she was younger. I mean, Mum would say that I'd go to school, you know, my tie on, my socks pulled up, and I'd come back home the exact same way. But when Kaya would go, she'd be out playing so much that she'd probably come home with half of the uniform missing.
all credit to Mum and Dad. They've, brought themselves up from having barely nothing, and then, putting us through private schools and just giving us what they never had. And I think they tried to, really pinpoint and show us what it was like when they were there, and what it's like some other Aboriginal kids around when in their childhood in comparison to what they've given us and what we have now. And we really need to, embrace it and use it to, better our future. I got brought up with a family that was heavily involved in football. They were in their son actually was in the same team as me when I was in my junior teams at Quakers Hill, and his name's Jamal Saliba, and we were just riding around, being little terrors, riding around the countryside of Quakers Hill. And they were football fanatics. They loved Manchester United, and I just sort of got a grasp of Manchester United, and it's been my team ever since. In under nines, I guess, after a year of playing, I really found that I loved the game and really enjoyed it. So I ended up going home to my mum and saying that I wanted to play for Man United one day and playing for the country. So I guess you could say that's when it started.
She was very determined. The four of them were quite sporty, but she was always very determined to be successful. It didn't matter what sport she did. She always wanted to do the best and be the best. So that was her goals in every sport she attempted, yeah. I've actually kept a book of hers that she had to do something at school, something she wanted to be when she grows up, and her goal was she was going to play for Australia one day, and I've actually kept that exercise book. So she's actually achieved that goal from a very early age, that she said she'd do it, and I knew that she would. I believed that she would.
Growing up, I used to play T-ball, basketball, little athletics, football back in Kalgoorlie, and then once I moved to Canberra, obviously everything's a little bit more competitive, and the coaches pressure you to make a decision. So I tried to keep with futsal and football as much as possible, but I thought obviously football had a lot more going for it and opportunities than futsal did, so I ended up choosing football. Honestly, when I first made the squad for the Matildas, I didn't really know who the Matildas were or their accomplishments. So, definitely coming from, 7 years ago to where I am now, I would have never dreamed of it.
How come a goalkeeper?
I got put in the position. It was the only position left when I moved from Kalgoorlie to Canberra, and it was either play in a Division 3 team and anywhere I wanted, or Division 1 team and in goals, and I chose the selfish option to be in the top team.
The thing is, I wasn't too familiar with soccer, with all the different things. So when we came to Canberra and she had the choice, we had to choose a team, the only opening they had was for a goalkeeper. And the thing was that was the first time she'd ever touched a ball as a goalkeeper, and she was fantastic. The coaches said she was a natural. All I was worried about is that she didn't want to move from Kalgoorlie to Canberra, and I wanted her to be happy. So I said, yeah, we'll go for it. Well, then when I realized what it was all about, I'll tell you, the life of the mother of a goalkeeper is pretty bad.
I kind of like all the pressure that I get, and I enjoy throwing myself on the ground and saving stuff and everything like that. So I guess I enjoy it. You kind of need to be a special type of person to like being a goalkeeper, I guess.
Definitely always being the one up front and wanting to score those goals. I love having that little bit more pressure on you to try score the winning goal, if not any goal in the game. So I love being that player on the end of the ball.
They come in at a very young age and showed great talent from probably 15, 16. So although they're still very young in football terms, they've had quite an enormous amount of experience in and around our national teams.
So I noticed it on the first training session, to be honest. I think she was about 14 years old, and little youngster come into the team, and she's a very tenacious player, very good with the ball at her feet and very skillful.
It was at our first Young Matildas camp, I think, when I was about 15, she would have been about 16. And from then I think friendship straight away. We got along really well. She was #1 keeper at that age group by far. She was just amazing. She can do unbelievable things. She can just pull out saves from where you don't expect. She just sort of got that X factor.
When we got the scholarship, then Swiss scholarship, that basically means you're on the path or you're on the way to Youth World Cups or World Cup. So we kind of knew that that's where we were heading, and everyone with the scholarship has that goal in mind.
How did the girls first hear that they were in the national team?
I got invited when I was 16, and I ended up getting a call off Tommy after the camp, and he said, you know, you're coming over to the US with us. So I wasn't expecting anything at that time, you know, being so young. I wasn't, you know, expecting to be in the squad or travelling with the team.
When Kai got picked, I knew she always had it there. It's just, and she's still working on it. I know she's got more to offer, and she knows that.
When I stood up and took notice of her was when she scored the winning goal against Brazil in the Peace Cup in 2008. Just the composure of us coming off the bench and really making a difference and putting a goal away against Brazil is a pretty awesome feat.
Kind of didn't know who Tom was, so I guess I didn't really know what to expect, and obviously a little bit nervous. Didn't really even think about playing for Australia, so yeah.
If anyone had tapped me on the shoulder and said, well, she's going to be at the World Cup, this is her second World Cup, she's going to be trying out for Olympics, I would have thought, you're dreaming.
Kaya's got this ability to do things that you don't actually see from the side at times. She's got the ability to change games, she's got an ability to see and to do things that are completely unexpected. Normally from the side, when you're looking at players, you can sort of tell what they're going to do before that happens. You know, she's also blessed with good skills, quick feet, pretty ferocious shot. But the thing that sets her apart is that ability to do something special. Well, Lydia's just kind of grown and grown, you know, from over the last 5 years into a really mature, dynamic goalkeeper. I think that the great thing about Lydia is her athleticism. You know, she seems to have arms that stretch forever, and she's got the ability to pull out saves that I very rarely see other female goalkeepers make. Until it was sort of made known that they had Indigenous backgrounds, we were totally sort of unaware of it in a sense. You know, there's really, you know, no difference between the regular run-of-the-mill players and Lydia and Kaya, just two, you know, normal, straightforward, happy-go-lucky young footballers.
No, I wasn't aware until she told us the story and her background, so it's fantastic to have two Indigenous girls in our team. We didn't get too much Indigenous information at school, and it's great to have two players in Lydia and Kaya to get their background. I've spent a lot of time with both of them, especially Lydia. I lived in Chicago with Lydia, and I got to know her background and where she come from and how she grew up, and she'd use kangaroo bones, I think it was, as teething rusks.
When we first met, I mean, first appearance, you don't sort of pick it, so it wasn't until a couple of meetings after that sort of became aware that she was actually Indigenous. Coming from both her and Kaya, they have a lot of stories to tell and information that we don't normally learn at school. I mean, coming from primary school, you don't get to know that firsthand, the stories and the knowledge, so yeah, it's really good.
Her makeup as a person has been influenced so much by her experiences when she was a young kid and when she was living in Aboriginal communities and going from, you know, place to place, and just sort of, I can just imagine this little skinny girl in the back of the car just like so ecstatic at everything she saw out the window. Could you imagine? Always known that she's had that heritage because she's so damn proud of it.
From the beginning I knew that Kaya and Lydia were Indigenous and very proud of their heritage. We don't treat them any differently. It's not like a big deal, we just know. It's just like I have an Italian heritage, and that's why I'm probably good at my football. And, you know, the attributes they get from their Indigenous background is why they're good at football.
When you look across our team, we've got a significant racial mix anyway, and everybody just gets on with it. You know, you've got Scottish coaches, you've got English coaches. Don't know if that's a good thing, but you know, we've got Italian background, Assyrian background, Indian background, players from those backgrounds. So, you know, having Indigenous players is not any different, I don't think.
When I was growing up, I guess before I hit puberty, he was my go-to parent. You know, I love being in the bush and learning all about it and living there, and obviously as soon as you hit 13 as a girl, then your mum becomes your best friend. So, but I think definitely a big part of my life was, through my growing up, was definitely influenced by my father. He's only seen me play for ACT, never Australia, and you know, the last 7 years I've been playing for Australia some way or another, and you know, I guess it's been, I think, 8 years now since he passed away. So yeah, you know, it's hard, but I knew he would always be proud of me.
That would have been his dream. I mean, if he, there's this saying in Aboriginal life, you know, like when you feel good and proud, you puff up like a goanna, you know, like a goanna goes, like stands up like this, you know, out in the desert, and he'd always say, I'll puff up like a goanna, and he was like that. His dream was that Lydia would have the best of both worlds and be able to represent Australia and Aboriginal people. So Ron wasn't just proud of Aboriginal people; he was proud of Australia. He was the dinky die.
I think it would have been harder if it was a longer illness or a longer bout of cancer, but the fact that it came so quickly, it didn't drag on emotionally. You know, it was quite tough, especially for Mum, but you know, we both got through it, and luckily for me, both my parents are pretty strong people, so I guess I kind of learnt from them, and you know, I was able to deal with it, I guess, maybe a lot better than, I guess, some people if they were in that situation.
Well, it was interesting, I'd say even the first 2 years, it was like Lydia and I were skirting around the issue, because and later as we talked about it, she was afraid to bring it up because she didn't want to see me cry, and I was afraid to bring it up. I didn't want to see her cry. So, but we did have our moments where we just cry together. But then when she was starting to go away to camps and to tournaments, and I realized that so many times she was away. It was either Ron's birthday, the anniversary of his death, and she had a hard time. She would text me, or we'd talk on the phone or Skype, and she would really be having a hard time. And so Doc on the team was very good with her, and she'd go and talk and things like that. So Lydia's quite deep, you know, she keeps things deep inside of her. So I know when it starts to come out, it's big.
It was not all plain sailing for Kaya either.
I was playing for Penrith Nepean at the time in girls football, and I was 15 years old and got asked to go up into my first grade game. And I was on for about 10 minutes, and then I touched the ball past this girl that was probably double my size, double my age, and she just cleaned me up, just took both of my legs from underneath me, and I was in agony. I was laying there bawling my eyes out. And me not being the type to ever want to cry or show emotion, I was just laying there, and I just, you know, couldn't open my eyes. I had my eyes closed, and then all these people ran over to me, and everyone knew it was a dirty tackle. Mum was on the other side of the fence wanting to jump over, and it was all happening. And then someone came over to me and was like, "You can open your eyes, it's all right." So I opened my eyes. I looked down at my leg, and it was, you know, swollen like a balloon. It was like there was 2 tennis balls in my leg. So it was my tibia and my fibia that just clean snap, and I was out for 6 months and in a full cast up to, you know, the top of my quad. So that was pretty traumatising, and probably one of the most serious incidents that's ever happened, and injuries that have ever occurred. Alan Stajic, the NSWIS coach, was one man that definitely had a lot of faith in me and believed in my ability, and gave me a scholarship to go into the Institute program after I broke my leg. So, you know, I say it all the time, but a lot of credit goes to Staj for actually giving me a go and taking me on board, and, you know, really taking a chance with me, especially coming off such a horrific injury like that. I had a few comments while I was out saying she'd never get back into it, and she's not going to make it. That's the end of her, you know, career. It's that broken leg, and then that just made me get the hunger to want to prove them wrong.
Yeah, I think it was unwavering. She just, it was just a bit of a speed hump to what she wanted to achieve. I'd always ask her, you still love doing it? Do you still want to do it? And then the day you don't, then give it up. She didn't love what she was doing tomorrow. I'd say maybe it's time to move on to something else. But she's always had that drive.
The semi-professional W League commenced in 2008, and it has not only seen a change in the profile of the women's game, but a change in attitude as well.
Before the Westfield W League, we had the National League, which sort of folded and then come back and then went away again. So it does give us good opportunity to play competitive football with each other week in, week out.
I have expectations of my own personal performance.
I picked her brain a little bit before the W League last year, and she kind of told me that she had a few in mind, and she ended up achieving all three of them. So I don't think she scored a goal every game. She was one short, but she wanted to get a hat trick and then get golden boot. So she definitely did that, plus all the other awards that she got. So she definitely said she wanted to score a goal at the World Cup.
What I've seen of her over the last couple of years is her really mature as a footballer. And part of that maturity now is that she does things much more, I suppose, professionally. So I think I've seen a great deal of consistency over the last, as I say, probably year and a half. I've also seen a change in ambition in the sense of her sort of being, as a young player, quite happy to be in the squad and around the squad, to being someone who actually wants to be in the team and actually make a difference.
At the W League Awards prior to the World Cup, Kaya won the Golden Boot for top goal scorer, the Players' Player of the Year, the Young Player of the Year and the Julie Dolan Medal for Player of the Year, while Lydia claimed the Goalkeeper of the Year.
When you were picking the squad for the World Cup, were they two names that were automatically penciled in?
Yeah, very much so. Our goalkeepers were kind of penciled in from 6 months ago. Lydia been penciled in probably from a couple of years ago. So there was never any doubt about Lydia making the squad, and really never any doubt about Kaya making the squad. When you look at the selection and the number of games that Lydia has played for the national team, I think that highlights how close she is to actually being the number one, and how confident that we are in her being the number one goalkeeper or playing for the national team.
The team arrived in Germany a week prior to the tournament starting for a training camp in the Lower Saxony university town of Göttingen.
In the World Cup 2006 we also talked with the Australian Football Association to come to Göttingen, but they qualify very late, and there's a preparation match from Australia with Mexico, and so I asked Joe Fernandez to come here too, and now the team is here.
Here they would play 3 warm-up games, the first against a local representative team. Kaya was to play no part in the game.
I had a bit of a niggle in my calf, so didn't really want to risk anything by playing that game, but not to worry. My eyes are set on the friendlies and then obviously the Brazil game.
Lydia started on the bench and was introduced late in the first half. Coach Tom Somani was far from stressed, as a Tamika Butt hat-trick set up an easy 6-1 victory for the Australians. The next game against Mexico was played behind closed doors, and Australia soon found itself behind 2-0. But the team fought back to equalise before half-time, with the first goal coming from Lauren Colthorpe and a second from Sally Shippard. Kaya Simon popped up in the second half to seal a 3-2 victory for Australia. Next stop was Wolfsburg, a city named after its castle which was built in 1600. It is most noted for being the home of Volkswagen. It was here, again behind closed doors, that Australia met England. 2 goals from Colette McCullum secured a 2-0 victory.
Start again.
Kaya was substituted late in the game.
The England game's the most frustrated I've ever seen Kaya, to be honest. She wasn't happy with the way she was playing, I don't think.
Lydia, who had spent all afternoon on the bench, caught up with former Chicago Red Stars teammate Karen Carney.
Yeah, it's weird, like we've been messaging each other, and like today we're having a bit of banter, like saying, you know, she twittered me and said, oh, looking forward to seeing you, but like kind of hope we beat you, and obviously I said the same back, and it's weird. I haven't seen her since America, and then seen her now, and I'm in my England kit, she's in her Aussie kit, it's mad.
With 3 victories behind them, the next stop was Mönchengladbach, a city in the North Rhine-Westphalia region. The first settlements in this area date back 400,000 years, and the abbey on which the town claims its origins dates back to 974. It was here the Matildas would play their opening game of the World Cup against Brazil.
World Cup's just a few days away, and we had really good results in our preparation games against England and Mexico. We've got, you know, the best preparation that we could have ever had. We're coming off 2 wins. We've got a lot of confidence going into the tournament, so hopefully we can you know, put on a good performance that first game.
And how important was it for you to get on the score sheet in those warm-up games?
Yeah, I think it's always important for a striker to get on the score sheet, just to get a bit of confidence under your belt and you know, be in that zone that you can score goals in internationals, and so close to a crucial tournament. You know, it's great, and I would have loved one in the England game, but not to worry.
The good thing about Tom is he's always picked people based on merit and what's best for the team, and he's done that in the past, so hopefully, you know, that happens and I can get a look in. Really happy with my performance at the moment and how I'm going, so yeah, who knows what Tom decides.
Prior to the big game, Kaya had time to celebrate her 20th birthday.
I picked the team and named the team last night, and you know, I think it's important, particularly getting into the first game, when I made up my mind to inform the players so that they've got, you know, a day or two to, you know, get themselves ready for the game, and ones who are obviously disappointed at missing out in the starting 11, I've got a day or two to kind of just sort of, you know, get back on an even keel again. Kaya's in the starting lineup. I don't think there was ever much doubt that she wouldn't be in the starting lineup. You know, she's been in tremendous form all year. She's been in tremendous form in the games that we've played, and you know, we hope that she's going to be a potential match winner for us in this tournament. Melissa is the goalkeeper for this game. Melissa's our captain, our #1 goalkeeper at this particular moment. But you know, we've in a position where I consider us to have 2 #1 goalkeepers. A goalkeeping position is a funny one, in the sense that if we could have 2 goalkeepers, it would be an easy decision. But you know, in relation to Lydia, I think she'll be ready to go when the time is right.
People have kind of sized her up to be like Marta, but you can see just the way that she plays and the way that her brain works, that I think she could be the best player in the world.
Really nervous.
Does Kai get nervous?
I think she does, but she has her little routine she goes through.
In the 23rd minute, Kaya almost gave Australia the lead. But the Matildas were to lose 1-0 when hesitation in defence allowed Rosanna to score for Brazil.
First taste of World Cup football, how do you feel now?
Yeah, good. You know, first game against Brazil, you don't really know what to expect but world class. So, you know, it was a good one and a good welcome to the World Cup. And you know, I think we even could have came away with a win, but we were just unfortunate not to finish some of our chances, and they fortunately were. So, it's definitely a great taste, and I love it, and I love the adrenaline and the atmosphere in the stadium, and I just can't wait to go on to the next game and get a result out of it. I was spewing when my number came up on the sub board, but Tommy's got to make some decisions and, you know, make some changes throughout the game, and I just want to stay on there and, you know, make an impact and score a goal or set up a goal and, you know, just really impact the game.
Yeah, Kaya did great, ruffled them up a bit, and the combination and the work between her and Lisa was pretty good. Disappointed with the goal, like we said, but you know, we created chances. you know, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the world. We give them a real run for their money.
I think, yeah, it's still, I'm still trying to process it that I'm actually at a World Cup and I'm actually achieving my goal that I set when I was 8 years old.
Following Brazil, it was on to the mining city of Bochum and the Stolperstein, or commemorative stumbling stones set in the pavements. Bochum suffered over 150 air raids in World War II, and unexploded bombs are still being found over 60 years later. A statue of an old woman searching for a loved one is a memorial to those who lost their lives. It was here that Australia were to face the unknown quantity of Equatorial Guinea.
Well, I think it was a fairly obvious decision. This is her second World Cup, and I've said all along I think we've got 2 number 1 goalkeepers, and I think it's very important for players like Lydia to experience an actual game at the World Cup, for her to experience that kind of pressure and that kind of environment.
The good news for Lydia was she was in the side, about to make her World Cup debut and become the first Aboriginal goalkeeper to play in a World Cup.
Pretty exciting. Obviously I think I was probably a bit nervous yesterday than I am feeling today, but yeah, definitely probably going to be a different feeling tomorrow, so I'm really excited to get my first World Cup start. Banned my mum from talking to me so I can concentrate and focus for the game tomorrow, so yeah, I'm feeling really good about it.
Kaya will be starting on the bench tomorrow, and that's not performance related. You know, I think if you look at our history in major tournaments, we try to sort of freshen up the squad, and we also try to be in a situation that we've got potent players on the bench who can come on and change the game, and Kai is one of those players.
Attending this match was former Socceroos World Cup finals coach Rally Rasic.
You were here in 1974 and Harry Williams was the first male Aboriginal to play in the World Cup. We've got 2 girls playing. How do you feel about that?
They have so much gift, so much talent. Aussie Rules has recognized hundreds of them, and unfortunately soccer is not recognized. It's the time that these super talented kids be paid much more attention and recognize their incredible talent for any sport, and soccer is not exception in that regard.
You know, what do you say, gobsmacked or something? It's like a dream come true. And I remember 6 months ago when Lydia sat down and said, "Mum, I want you to come to the World Cup." And at that point I thought, well, I don't even know if she'll be playing. But I said, well, she wants me to come, so that's good enough. And to have this is like icing on the cake, so it's wonderful.
Obviously your husband Ron, her dad, sadly can't be here. How do you think he would feel today?
Oh, look, he'd be strutting around like a puffed up goanna. That's in the bush. But he would be so proud, you know. I rang my dad, who's German, and in America, I rang him this morning, and he said, "Oh, I don't know if there's any change." I said, "Guess what, Dad? She's playing." Well, he cried.
The Matildas made the perfect start against Equatorial Guinea when Lena Khamis opened the scoring. But a defensive error let the African nation back into the game. Australia led 3-1, but another defensive mistake made it 3-2. Coach Tom Samani was relieved to hear the final whistle.
Lydia, obviously your first game at a World Cup, I'm sure you would have loved to have kept a clean sheet.
You know, obviously, 2 one-on-ones is a bit unfortunate, but, we got the right result that we wanted at the end of the day.
What about the fingertip save that you had? I mean, that was going in the top corner.
That turned into a goal kick. I guess the right result came out of that one all around. Happy with my performance. Wish I could have done something a bit more with the one-on-ones, but, I guess the strikers more, favoured to score than the goalkeeper saving it.
I thought she did really, really well. She was solid in there. The 2 goals she couldn't do anything with, and she made a magical save in the top right-hand corner that was, I was in a perfect angle, and it was just a wonderful save. And at the end of the day, we got through to the next round. Well, we're still in the tournament, I suppose, and it was a fingertip away from being out of the tournament. So, and that fingertip was hers. So, yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
Next stop was Leverkusen, home of the chemical company Bayer since 1891. The city is now linked strongly to the company. It was in 1958 that one of the largest advertisements in Europe, the Bayer Cross, was erected. This is 51 metres in diameter, weighs 300 tonnes and uses 1,712 light bulbs and dominates the night sky. Here, the Matildas would meet Norway, and a draw would see them progress to the quarter-finals for the second World Cup in a row. Needing just a draw to progress from the group stage, the Matildas went behind in the 56th minute. But within a minute, good work by Lisa Devana set up Kaya to pull Australia level. With 3 minutes to go, Kaya scored her second. Australia were through to the quarter-finals, while Norway had failed to make the second round for the first time ever.
Your shoulder, what happened there? Did it pop out?
Yeah, well, I strap it for every game, and it just, sometimes decides to pop out if it gets caught in the awkward position that it did in that game. But it was out for a bit, and then I was just standing there waiting for it to pop back in, so it just went straight back in.
You said you wanted to score a goal at the World Cup. You've now got 2 in one game. I mean, how does it feel, and does it live up to expectations?
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling. I don't think I've had a crowd roar so loud when a goal of mine has gone in.
Also, first Indigenous player to score a goal, male or female, at a World Cup. That's a pretty special one as well.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but yeah, that's a big honour, and I don't think I've really sat down and thought about the game yet, and really let it sink in. But it's just an amazing feeling, and it's indescribable.
After 2 goals, everyone gave her cheers and claps and everything. And I walked up and gave her a hug, and I said, "Oh, so you scored 2?" And she said, "Oh yeah, finally." Like she was just, I think she wanted to do it just to calm herself. Like it wasn't like I talk about all the support and everyone else watching and everything, but it's just like fine. She did it for herself. I think that's probably how she maintains her composure with it all.
Germany's third oldest city, Augsburg in southwest Bavaria, was the venue for Australia's quarter-final. The city was founded in 15 BC, and its first 400 years were heavily influenced by the Roman Empire because of its excellent location. Appropriately, it was also the home of Mary Ward, a woman ahead of her time, who in the 17th century fought for a way in which women in religious life could be active in the world. She prophetically said, "Women in time to come will do much." Despite the team being relaxed and confident, the Matildas made the worst start possible, finding themselves 2-0 down after just 16 minutes. On the stroke of half-time, a wonderful strike by Elise Perry gave them a lifeline. But in the 53rd minute, an under-hit back pass gifted Sweden a third, and it proved a bridge too far for the gallant Matildas. And the youngest team in the tournament were heading home.
It's disappointing to see our run end, so early. I guess you could say the quarterfinals are early for us, but we put our hearts into it and played as well as we could on the day. And I think Sweden were just the better team on the day.
You've got to remember your part-timers, they're full-timers.
Yeah, exactly. Football's not the same in every country, and they've got the luxuries of being full-time footballers.
There was some positive aspects, I think, to the performance, and we felt at half-time, once we got ourselves back into the game, that we were really positive and upbeat and could have gone on and won the game. I think this has been a tournament of costly mistakes, and today was probably another example of that. from a player who's had an outstanding tournament.
You had your one game, never got a chance for another one.
Yeah, you know, I think that's just the way that football goes sometimes, so, you know, have to look ahead into the future.
Do you see her as being number one in 4 years' time?
Or I would say, barring any accidents or injuries, undoubtedly.
I'm very proud of my daughter in every way.
Everyone's, you know, so proud of her. Again, you know, it comes back to, you know, young, Indigenous, you know, soccer player on the world stage in the Matildas, and on top of that, you know, it's not like she's coming off the bench. I mean, she's up there in the front line. She's, you know, kicking ass.
From my disadvantage to Kaya's success, I suppose, it's been a long road, but just the way Kaya speaks, the way she handles herself, she's blown me out of the water with her ability to not only communicate, but her sporting ability. She's just a well-rounded kid, you know what I mean? And she's wonderful.
Once back in Australia, what were the girls' reflections on the tournament?
All of us were disappointed that we couldn't have got further. And saying that, we have a lot of things to be proud of. We jumped to 9th position in the FIFA rankings. Well, one of our players got in the All-Star team, another one got the youngest player of the tournament, so there are a lot of positives to come out of it, and usually you don't see them until after the fact, when you get knocked out. Before the tournament, I wanted to go further than the girls did in 07, and to not achieve goals that you set before the tournament is disappointing.
What needs to be done to encourage more Aboriginal people to play football?
In Indigenous communities, there's a lot of talented sports people, and whether they know it or not, they've got that natural talent. They're not sure how to use it to the best of their ability, and to really, you know, use it to get them places and to move forward in their sporting ability. You go out in the communities, they're like climbing all over you, and they just want to do something. They just can't sit still. Yeah, can't sit still, not at all. And you know, I think that they want to do something and they're willing to do something to learn something new. I think that kind of gives us a bit of an edge to, you know, kids in the communities are not watching TV, they're playing the football. I just attended a grassroots FIFA conference in Alice Springs, and you know, the thing that they kind of brought up was that AFL, they go out in the communities and entice the kids to play AFL, and that's how come there's so many Indigenous players playing AFL, and rugby as well, where football hasn't reached that stage yet. But you know, there are strategies coming in place to do that, but you know, I guess it's just a bit of a slow process. I attended a strategic forum that the FFA held, and they're really putting in good, you know, solid strategies to, you know, get more Indigenous kids participating. And Warren Mundine and John Moriarty are two, you know, main big heads, and they did mention that they had that exact same forum a couple of years ago, and not much has changed since that one. The main thing that they got out of it was, we can't just, you know, give lip service this time. We actually have to do the actions and put these strategies in place to get the results.
Frequently, the success of Aboriginal athletes is put down to natural talent, ignoring the fact that these athletes have to work just as hard to reach their goals.
It has been a lot of hard work, and it still is a lot of hard work, and you've got to be dedicated to do that and really love the sport.
And willing to do it too.
And willing to do it, yeah. I think that's what makes us different to a lot of the mainstream athletes, is that we do put in as much hard work, if not more than the other people in the team, but it's that natural edge that we might have on top of that. Both of us haven't reached the peak of our game yet, and you know, no doubt that we'll hopefully be in the team for a while to come and inspire a lot of other Indigenous girls to come through the ranks. It's exciting for what the future has to hold, and hopefully we can influence the whole country and prove our point that we don't need to be taken out of our families to represent your country.
Australia.